Dear students, what would a traveler visiting a medieval town expect to find? Well, it would depend on what kind of town it was. A temple town, an administrative town, a commercial town, or a port town, of course, during the medieval period. So, we are going to learn about the towns, traders, and craftsperson. Chapter 5 History. Now, let's see what functions these towns performed during the medieval period. We will see the functions as well as their examples. So, we will see that these towns were the administrative centers, they were the temple towns, they were the commercial centers, and they were the center of craft production. To start with, let's take up administrative town. For administrative town, what else can be the better example than Thanjavur? Now here in this slide, you can see the picture of Rajrajeshwara temple, where you can very clearly make out what you have learned in the previous chapter about the Cholas, how they made Brihadeshwara temple, how they made Gangaikonda Cholapuram. You can see the architectural masterpiece is the same. So, going ahead with this architectural masterpiece, we will learn what activities were conducted in this town. Now we see there were palaces and pavilions. There were markets for selling grains and many other things. Water supply from wells and tanks was there, which showed that of course the king took good care of his subjects. Then there was use of fine cotton for the kings and nobility and coarse cotton for the masses. Here we can see that there was difference between rich and poor. The social difference existed. Along with this, crafts work, sculpture and bronze idol were very popular. Then from Thanjavur we moved to the temple town and pilgrimage centers like Madurai, Mathura, Vrindavan, Ajmer. Now all these places, they represent urbanization. This you will learn as we proceed with the chapter, that how from smaller villages they moved on to become a larger village and from a larger village to a town. Now these temple towns, they were central to economy and society and thus developed into townships. Now, how they were central to economy? When these temples were built, as you are very well aware, these temples were built by the rulers to show their prosperity, to show their power and strength. But along with this temple, in the close vicinity, multiple things also emerged and developed, like let's say guest houses for the people who came from far off places to visit the temple. There were garland seller. There was a small marketplace in the close vicinity. So when we see that all these different activities flourished near the temple, we can very easily say that temples were central to economy and society. Then Ajmer is an excellent example of religious coexistence. This you all are aware. Now let's see, in this slide we will learn how these small villages, from small village, they moved on to become a town. Now remember, in the previous chapter you have learnt about Cholas making Thanjavur as their capital city, but originally they were from a very small village called Urayur. So similarly, all these temple towns and administrative towns and other centers which we are going to learn, they all emerged sooner or later from the villages. Now, what characteristics or features they had? All such villages had a mandapika. Here when I say mandapika, it means mandi. You are well aware of the word sabzi mandi. You know Azadpur Mandi, you must have heard of Okhla Mandi, and all these mandis were for buying and selling. Then there were streets for different kinds of artisans, which points out that craftspersons or craft work flourished in these towns. So there were potters, oil pressers, toddy makers, smiths, and so on. Now, some people used to live there, and some came from far off places for trading in different categories or varieties like horses, salt, camphor, saffron, spices, etc. Gradually, from among this group, someone who was more powerful and had more money later on became Samanta and started levying and collecting taxes from others. In this line, we see Hampi. Hampi was a center which developed as a temple town also, which had beautiful architecture also. Now, it had some remarkable features. First of all, Hampi was a well fortified city. Second, no mortar or cement was used in the construction of walls. Then, what did they use for making walls? They used interlocking technique or interlocking pattern. Then there were royal complexes, the palaces, with distinctive architecture. It had domes, it had pillared halls. Apart from that, apart from the palaces and such royal buildings, they had well planned orchards and pleasure gardens. Now, the social life of this place was very obvious when they celebrated Mahanavami festival. Then from this temple town and craft center Hampi, we move to the commercial town or the trading center Surat. Now, Surat was termed as Emporium of Western Trade. There were multiple reasons why it was termed as Emporium of Western Trade. Number one, people traded with West Asia via Gulf of Hormuz. Second, all those who went to Mecca, the ships sailed from here. Then Dutch and English, they had set up their factories at Surat. Zari border, gold lace border. It had a very famous market in West Asia. Then Kathiawar Seth, a community, they served as bankers, which was very popular and famous in Egypt. But although Surat had all these features, despite all these features, it declined. The importance of Surat declined towards the end of 17th century. We will learn about the reasons in the next slide. Then we come to the craft town. Now, craft town, when we talk of craft center, we talk of Masulipatnam, we talk of Bidar, we talk of Hampi, we talk of Thanjavur. All these were craft centers as well. Now, Bidar, very famous for Bidri work. There, a special community called Panchala or Vishwakarma. They were famous over there. They had masons, goldsmith, carpenters, etc. And all these people were very important for construction of palaces, making tanks, reservoirs, and many other things. Kaikolars were one such community or a community of weavers who were so prosperous that at times they gave grant to temples as well. But despite all these features, as we just now discussed, be it Surat or Hampi or Masulipatnam or any other town which flourished during the medieval period, gradually they started declining. The importance started declining. Now, there were many reasons, and the most important for it was that Europeans started expanding their trade activity in the east, mainly India and Indian subcontinent, where out of all the Europeans, Britishers or English emerged as the most powerful one. So what happened? They redefined the Indian textile designs. They like indigo, which you will be learning in the next class. Now, craftsperson independence also declined. Craftspersons, textile makers, weavers, they all had to work according to the company, East India Company, and its orders. So gradually they captured the trade, and from trade they moved on to capturing territory, which you will learn in the next chapter. So dear students, I hope you have understood the lesson, and for better understanding, watch the video twice followed by reading of the chapter thoroughly.